What's going on, folks? This is a special edition. Mancini Sports had to have a last-minute cancellation for our Tuesday show, so we did not get a chance to bring you guys the AFC South. However, because of the fact that we didn't get a chance to bring you the AFC South, we're going to do that now. And because of the fact that what I meant to say is that it is on the first night of preseason. Austin Davis just threw a pick, gosh darn it, in the end zone, but that's okay. So we're going to be a little bit distracted, but we're going to go through and kind of talk about what's going on so far with preseason, and we're going to talk about what we've seen in camp and all that, and we're going to touch on those things, as we go through. But we are going to make sure that we keep our word and bring to you what could be a very interesting division this year. I'm joined tonight by Coach Christopher Taylor. I'm also joined by a good friend, Baltimore Blaine, Mark Hirsch, and Shane McGowan, and Luis are out tonight. So this is a knucklehead version of the pigskin preview. So let's start off with, let's just pass around the horn real quick. You will go first to Coach Taylor and then to Blaine, because your two teams just got finished playing a few minutes ago. What did you see? I mean, obviously it's preseason, but what did you see that you liked, didn't like in today's game from both your teams? Go first to you, Coach, and then we'll go over to Blaine.
Well, even though the score doesn't truly reflect, I was impressed by the play of the defensive line. Again, it's early, but I think they did a good job of allowing their linebackers to move free. But the other problem is once you get there, we got to make some tackles. I think there was a poor job of tackling today. Outside of that, I'm not impressed. They didn't really do a whole lot, but Manning wasn't really that great. I think in the first part of the game, he was like 3 for 13 with one interception, like 7 yards. So it wasn't a real good production by him. But then again, I don't know that I expected to see a whole lot. So it was pretty much what I thought it would be. But so far, so good.
You on mute there, Baltimore Blaine?
Yeah, I got my mic. Okay, I got my mic on. I was disappointed that the Rams didn't play their starters. When you get to this point in football, you want to see an even matchup. But for what it was worth, the starters, Ravens starters, Flacco and company, got on the field and they looked solid. They, of course, like I said, they were playing the backups of the Rams, so it's hard to gauge that. But what you want to see is that they're performing, executing the way that they're supposed to execute. It was a entertaining game. It's nice to see the prospects, even though a lot of them will be out of football in September. Just to see these guys trying and fighting for that spot and their dreams, and some of them are, of course, auditioning for other teams, such as Lednick. There's hey Chris.
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah.
That's Coach Christopher. That's not me.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what that was, guys. I apologize.
I thought that was Chris watching this game.
It was me watching it.
Mine's on mute. I promise. Go ahead.
It was me watching this game, and I dropped the remote trying to flip the channel. Sorry, guys. I do apologize.
That's okay.
I do apologize.
But I like seeing that there's a kicker on the Ravens. His name is Lednick. He's from Vednik. He's from Norway, and he's a punter and a kicker, and he's a solid guy. He's going to be kicking in this league somewhere, and it's nice to see these guys that raw talents that nobody's talked about or that aren't in the spotlight making themselves known. And it got ugly at the end of the game, with all the penalties and everything. I will say with the Rams, I like the fact that I like their running game. Even with the reserves, I was impressed by the yardage they were picking up later on in the game with some of their backups there. It's the scheme of the play, not necessarily the personnel that I'm talking about. But I think it's a young. It was some good young talent. Enjoyable. It's football. Even though it's not at the top NFL level, we're getting there. It's sort of like getting us throughout training camp as spectators as well.
Yeah, and people forget that especially in the first few quarters, like these guys have been running around in shorts or not hitting each other since January. So those first few, you got some issues with remember what contact feels like, remember what contested catches feel like. So it's good to see these guys out there hitting. The first team we're going to start with, we're watching them play right now, but I do want to just give a shout out just for humanity's sake and for love for the guy and for the fact that the game is always better when the best players are healthy and able to play. Andrew Luck went out there and threw. He didn't get a touchdown, but he went on 2 drives and he had a good game. I mean, so far, but the fact is he's out there. Nerve stuff, neck stuff is huge, and I just want to give some love to Andrew Luck for being out there at all. And so why don't we start there, guys? We'll start with our AFC South. We'll go Blaine, coach, and then back to me. Obviously, the whole story about the Colts is luck or not. And, last year we waited around, and one of the worst owners in professional sports, talking all the smack and getting involved in the coaches and saying anything. He's going to be ready and just getting his nose in things that are problematic and shouldn't be, kind of made things even worse last year. But this year, he just came out. He threw some completion. They didn't test his arm too deep, but he took a hit, which I think everyone. I don't want to sound like too barbaric, because I know at this day and age, everyone's kind of like, we want everyone to act like they're not getting hit out there. But I think the fact that he got sacked, he got hit, and he's okay. He's a big dude. He's like 2.5 of me with pure muscle. Andrew Luck's going to be okay. He got hit. He threw some passes, and I think the game's better for it. So we'll go to you first, Blaine. What are you looking for with the Colts? What do you see happening this year? They have a lot of transition going on. Obviously everyone's happy about Luck coming out, but what do you want to see from the Colts this preseason and going forward?
Well, my major question is like everyone else, can Luck rebound from that shoulder injury? And it sounds like he's doing, he's got a solid start. He's been practicing without restrictions, so, it looks like, he is healthy. Other than, they've had him sit out a couple of games, so they're bringing him along, slowly, keeping him, making sure that, they don't overwork him. He's supposed to play for 2 quarters. No, I'm sorry, for about a quarter tonight. What is that? Are they at the end of the first quarter yet?
Yeah, no, Bassett's already in. I think he was successful enough, looked comfortable enough, took a couple of hits that the coaches saw what they needed to see. So this is the 3rd series, still in the first quarter, and Bassett just went 3 and out. But Luck did his 2 series and looked pretty good.
Yeah, my other question was the new head coach, Frank Reich. Can he get his team off to a fast enough start, especially with a quarterback that's coming back from a missed season due to that a serious shoulder injury? So it sounds like the first step of that is a solid plant for the first step. So the other thing is watching to see what this team is like under a new head coach. Couple of notes is that they activated strong safety Clayton Gathers from the active PUP. He had a knee injury. He's only been injured. I mean, he's only over the last 2 seasons. He's only played 14 games due to injuries. He missed all of 2000 or most of 2017 with a neck injury. Also, they activated free safety Malik Hooker, who had an ACL tear. He was the 15 overall pick last year's draft, and he was looking strong in the first 7 games before the injury. So this is a team that's very hard for me to gauge because they've been bad for so long, or they seem that bad because they haven't had luck. So I'm interested. It's one of the interesting ones, along with the Cleveland Browns and those teams, to see how they come. Are they going to claw their way back into contention in their division? Or are they going to make a lot of noise, or are they just going to make a whimper? Coach? Turn your mic on, Coach.
All right, there you go.
Jesus. Well, I was in the process of saying, I do apologize. I was in the process of saying, guys, that I think the biggest test is what can Frank Reich bring to, what kind of motivation can he bring to this team? I'm not sold on Luck. He's coming back off an injury, and I don't think that he was like Jesus to help resurrect this program. And just the return of Luck. It needs a new philosophy. It needs a new culture on the team, and that's the important thing. I mean, a lot of teams are talented, but you got to address some offensive line issues. You got to address, where do you go with Luck? How long can you have him with an injury of such, and how long can you depend or trust? How many hits can he take before he starts to feel any pressure or swelling? And that's a big deal. Luck is a big thing, but the biggest thing is culture and the decision as to whether or not you're going to stick, or how long you're going to try and stick with the decision of rolling with Luck, because you got to start planning for something behind that, because again, injuries of these sort can be kind of funny, kind of fickle. A couple of hits and now you got swelling. That swelling starts to pinch back on that nerve, and then you can't feel your fingertips, can't squeeze the same way. So, we've yet to see. That's the thing I can, as far as when I view the Colts.
Before you go, Chris, it's interesting, Coach, that you bring up the offensive line. Another note, left tackle Anthony Costanzo aggravated lingering hamstring injury that he's had for a few weeks. Well, he's had it since most of the offseason, from off-season training. And he aggravated that. It is expected to miss a few weeks. Now, they're expecting him to be ready on week 1, but this is a lingering injury, and he can't seem to shake it. And you don't know how, past week one, you don't know how long that, or how that's going to affect you throughout the season. It can mess with your mind as well if you're not trusting your hamstring. If you're not trusting any part of your body that's been injured, that you start playing and favoring that injury, and it can affect your overall play or even cause another injury.
And it's also the type of injury you mentioned, a hamstring, and especially for a big guy. I mean, you're talking about at least a 6-week period to where if you're just doing rehab, a 6-week period before you're even supposed to be trying to make moves on it or light running or things of that nature. And when you're a bigger guy, a bigger body, it's a lot harder on the body and for those muscles to recover. So that's another big deal in itself. So when people come back from injury, at the pro level, a lot of the times, hey, we're paying you the big bucks. You need to hurry up and get back. And people feel pressured to hurry up and get back. Team doctors are paid by the team to try and get you back on the field. It doesn't mean that they have your best interests at heart. So which is why they're taking their time and giving Luck steps, because they're not quite sure how the body will respond with continuous pressure. So those injuries can be tricky, and that's the thing, Blaine, that you mentioned in the very beginning, that can make or break a team. But again, the season will tell us. But if he's going into the season with a nagging injury and he's playing on it, it's just going to prolong the time that it heals.
Right. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, besides, I think those are all some great points. I think besides that, we want to look at some of the players they have, and they have some fun young guys. I'm watching this game right now. I don't think they've really done a lot on that defensive side. I think Chuck Pagano, God bless him. I hope he's doing well with his cancer, survival and all that. But he ran that team into the ground. He and one of the worst GMs, giving up a first-round pick for Richardson after he'd already failed. on down the line. All the high picks for people like Fleener, and it's just not a very good background for Luck to build from. I think they're a ways off, and I really don't see them going up in any direction. That I don't see them, really growing fast. Like, we talked about yesterday, Coach, Arizona and San Francisco. Those are teams that are specifically rebuilding, but have a plan or doing really well doing it. You know what I mean? You've got Garoppolo. You have all these other players that are really, making a push to do something special. This team just kind of seems like, what are they doing? They spent all their draft picks on Fleener, Moncrief, Richardson, all these just 0, 0, 0, 0. It's pretty tough to see what they're actually going to do. They have a kid, Dion. I'm missing his name here. Dion. Well, his first name is Dion. His first name's Dion, and he is absolutely exploding in practice, and he looks like he can do something fantastic. And you also have, of course, T.Y. Hilton. You have some great young running backs for that team.
Are you talking about the wide receiver?
Yeah.
Okay, Deion Kane.
Deion Kane, that's his last name. Deion Kane. Yeah. I'm seeing him out on the field a little bit. He looks like the real deal. He's absolutely splashing in practice. That's all anyone that goes to see the Colts can talk about is Deion Kane. So much so that they're kind of treating him like a starter here so far in the first half, where they don't want to get him hurt. He ran some routes with T.Y. He didn't get any catches, but, he looks good. They have some guys in the backfield that look good. But once again, nothing on defense. Costanzo, offensive line is hurt. Luck's hurt. All brand new system. Everything's new. I think this is going to be our consensus bottom of the division. What do you guys? If anyone wants to argue with that, let me know.
Well, another player that's I'm in feedback. Another player that's been hurt is the middle linebacker, the fifth round pick last year, Anthony Walker. He was they were projecting him to start at middle linebacker, and he's got a groin injury now, and he's going to miss some valuable time. He's expected to be ready for week 1, but he's going to miss valuable practice snaps and preseason game snaps. So, that's on the defensive side of the ball. I also wanted to point out, I don't know if you caught that, Chris, but Marlon Mack exited the preseason game tonight with a hamstring injury. Mm. He was their leading rusher last year. So we'll see how that pans out. But as far as where this team is going to finish up again, I don't know whether they're going to whimper back into the division at last place, or if Luck is solid. He hasn't had a lot of supporting cast to help him over recent years, and I don't see how that's going to change this year. So I'm going to put them at the bottom of the division right now.
Yeah, I agree. New coach, new head coach, new system, new philosophy, new culture, new leadership. A lot of these things are transpiring, and people are got to figure out where they fit in, and the coaches also have to figure out whether or not how players plug into the system, or what kind of tweaks they got to make to the system to address type personnel that they have. And a couple of preseason games it's not long enough to figure that out. You're looking at about maybe the middle of the season before you can figure out what kind of team they'll be next year. So, I'm not quite sure how far they'll go or how much of a swing we'll see from last year's season. But I'm not expecting a whole lot. But maybe a change of attitude, change of culture will be the first thing we see. So, like I said, the season is yet to tell us.
All right. Staying on the kind of the good feel story tip, I want to say how great it is. Just it happens to be on my team. He plays with his brother, but Shaquem Griffin playing one hand in the NFL, playing up front, making hits on special teams, playing in the NFL. Awesome story. Just makes everybody feel good, and this is our thing. And I don't know, maybe I'm just a little kid, but doesn't it just feel like different, like when you actually see uniforms on the field playing football, like it's like your whole year changes. So that's how I'm kind of feeling right now. And I'm
Like
watching it.
Christmas.
Yeah, kind of. And I'm watching the end of the Texans game. And it's kind of interesting because I'm going to take a little bit of a step back. The more I'm kind of looking at this and thinking about this, I think that maybe I was a little too high on the Texans in the offseason. I think that they're going to have some issues. Another feel-good story. Deshaun Watson, took a snap today, so that means at least he's healthy enough to be, part of the question. Which is, once again, the league is always better when the best players are out there and the best players are healthy. It's so hard watching preseason football when there's people just missing assignments everywhere. But anyways, I think that the Texans have so many pieces that are one injury away from folding the whole team. I'm going to take a little bit of a step back. I think Deshaun Watson's going to be fine. I think if the bottom of what he did in those first few games last year is his average or even his ceiling, he's going to be fine in this league. But I'm taking a few steps back. I think the Texans are going to have some problems. I'm putting them like around 7 and 9, around there. I'll give us a little more reasons, but we'll go to Coach Christopher first, talk about what you think about the Texans, and then we'll go to Shane, and then I'll kind of wrap it up, and we'll go on to the next team.
Well, that's unique because I actually think that the Texans are the best team in the AFC South. That's happens to be my opinion. I know Jacksonville is out there, but to me, Jacksonville is basically like a coin flip. One year they may be pretty good, and then the next year you don't know. I mean, so we've yet to see, but all around when they're healthy, I think Houston is the best team in the AFC South, followed by closely behind Jacksonville. But so since we're on the topic of Texas, they seem to be able to put a really solid defensive package out there, even without their superstars and their best players being available. And that's one of the things that I'm impressed with the system. I think they are. I think they are well coached, as I'm sure a lot of you will agree. I mean, you think about his potential. You got J.J. Watt, you got Jadeveon Clowney, and I'm trying to think of the nose tackle. His name will come to me. But anyway, I mean, that is about as solid as a defense. He's a big dude too. God dog it, Reader. Big dude. I mean, that is a solid, underrated defensive front, and to me, it's probably one of the best in the NFL. Probably second on paper to, my Los Angeles Rams. So with that reason alone, I kind of put them higher on the mark. Now we've yet to see what we're going to get out of Deshaun this year coming back, and then also with the Tyron, what did he call himself? The Badger, the safety. He'll be returning and coming, and we'll see what we get out of him. But I think
Honey Badger,
really solid. Honey Badger.
Tyrann Mathieu, yeah, that's a big deal for them.
That's a big deal.
Right. On the field, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Coach. I like this team. This is my favorite team in the South. But it all really depends on Deshaun Watson. Same question as Luck. Can he bounce back from that injury? How effective will he be? Can he continue his growth? Because it was his first year last year, his rookie year last year, and he was making some noise.
Yeah, real strides.
Yeah, and now, can he pick up where he left off, or is that injury going to set him back mentally? I'm also questioning whether or not how much more J.J. Watt has in the tank after his injury history. Because he's been known to carry this defense, and you made some good points about the rest of the defense of the front, but J.J. Watt was the heart of this defense, and can they do they really need his contribution as much anymore? You would hope not. You would hope this team is growing. I still like them better than the other three teams in this division, and I'm putting them up at the top of the division when all is said and done. If Deshaun Watson is healthy and his mind is right. The one interesting thing is a defensive end, Jadeveon Clowney is he's working his way back into football shape, according to the coaches. Continues to return from a knee injury, and he's been doing most of the work on the sidelines. He's expected to be ready for week 1. I don't think, he's going to be doing it without an extension. It doesn't look like they're going to extend him. It looks like they might be even moving on from him. I guess he's going to be a free agent at the end of the season. It'll be interesting. We'll see if they're going to use the franchise tag on him for another year. But teams like to do that when they're not so sure about a player anymore. They instead of extending them right out, they put that franchise tag on them, get a free season out of them. Well, I guess it's not a free season because they're paying them a lot of money, but they get to evaluate him another season before he hits the free agent market, and maybe that's what they're going to do.
And teams strategically use the franchise tag to their benefit, because what they're basically saying is, we acknowledge you're one of the players in your position, and we're willing to play you within the top 5, or say what it is, the average of the top 5 players in your position. So when they franchise you, they pretty much pay you in between. They're saying, hey, we like you enough to where we know you're a talent, but at the same time, like you said, this is a tool that they use, and they may franchise him because you got to acknowledge, teams have to game plan for Clowney, so you got to recognize him as maybe one of the top 10, top 5 defensive ends in the league when he's healthy. So
yeah.
They use that for their benefit. But one of the things that it seems to me that they may be trying to move beyond Clowney. That's kind of what the impression is by not extending him, or saying that there's somebody else that takes a priority in paying him, or they may be trying to figure out how to pay him long, where he gets his money up front, or how much he gets up front, or whatever the breakdown is. It could be an issue of that. So give us some time to figure out how we're going to get you the money, and we'll work that way. But them not extending them, I don't know what kind of message that said. It doesn't say, not a very positive one to me, because if he's someone that you feel like this is somebody that our franchise is ultimately better because we have him, then you sign him as fast as you can, or you try to, unless you own their rights, as in the case of Aaron Donald. So,
yeah. Another couple of notes. Safety. It's a sad note. Safety Andre Howell was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Big player in the secondary. He had 47 solo tackles last season, third most in the secondary, but and 2 forced fumbles and 3 interceptions. But he's fighting Hodgkin's lymphoma. Another player to watch out for, keep an eye on, is running back Deontay Foreman. He's on the PUP list, the active PUP list, to start training camp. Again, another player there. They're not sure if he's going to be ready for week 1. He's coming off an Achilles.
Yeah, an Achilles rupture, and that Blaine, I'll let you continue. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that for me was the big piece that they were putting together last year. It was going to be Foreman and Deshaun Watson, and when both of them went down and both of them coming back, that's one of the other reasons why I'm starting to get a little bit more shaky on my thoughts when it comes to the Texans and how this year is going to come out. It's more just I keep adding up risks and potential problems they can't come back from. So as something like a prediction side, that's starting to make me a little shakier and shakier.
But Chris, if you look at their schedule, I put that as a strength for them. You look at their schedule; they can still be an 11-12 win team if they play like the first half team they were last year. Because they start off with New England. They open up with New England, but then they have weeks 2 through 6. They have Tennessee, the Giants, Indy, Cowboys, Buffalo, and then week 7 they have Jacksonville. But after that, Jacksonville, they have Miami, Denver, a bye, and then Washington, Tennessee again, Cleveland, Indy, New York Jets, and then they have a matchup at week 16 with the Philadelphia Eagles. This schedule is very friendly. If this team is as good as they were in the first half of last year, this is a very doable schedule for them to have at least 11 wins.
Yeah, see, I think you guys are both absolutely out of your minds. The best team in the AFC is in this division, and you guys don't talk about them. The best team in the AFC by far is Jacksonville.
Oh!
I win pick'em every year. I win in fantasy every year. All Jacksonville did was get a few plays away from going to the Super Bowl, and they added more and took away nothing. I don't understand, like, what in the world. And they're all young guys. They got more experience. They have by far the best defense in the NFL this year. Their running game is stout with Fournette. He's gotten better. He's gotten more conditioned. They have runners behind him. They've got more people like Chark in the receiving core. They got better on the offensive line. They got more depth on the defense. I don't understand, like, why you guys would pick a team that even when Deshaun was at his best, he lost 3 of the 4 games he played. I mean, he was awesome, but he lost like 35, 38 to 33. I mean, these guys, Texans have done nothing. O'Brien is a failure as a coach. Deshaun exploding last year is the only reason why he even still has a job. And they should have beat the Pats in that last game, and they were the best team going into the end of the year. And I guarantee you they're a 12-win team. And I think this is going to end up being one of the weakest divisions in the NFL, except for Jacksonville. That's my pick, and which again we're going to have our pick'em list, folks. So I guess that you've heard my side on Jacksonville. Why don't we go to you, Coach Christopher? Why in the hell do you think the Texans are going to beat Jacksonville this year?
Well, I didn't say that. I just said I think
you said you think they're going to be the best.
I said I think they're okay. So are you ready to listen?
Yeah, I'm ready to listen.
You ready to listen?
My mute button goes on, and you and Blaine talk.
So listen. I think we both agreed that Jacksonville was a good team. You asked us who we thought the better team was, and I thought overall that the reason I would is because, of course, the defense, in my opinion, I think Houston has a better defense. Not saying that the Jacksonville defense is not good. It has some really good players. I know Aubrey Jones is there, and I think Michael Bennett is with them now. So they did get stronger. They did make some improvements, but I'm not sure that those players that they added are enough to make their defensive front better than the ones that the Texans have. And coming off of injury, yeah, I can understand that, but Blake Bortles. I think we've already seen what we're going to get out of Blake Bortles. I don't see any big growth curve that we're going to witness from any of his past seasons that he's played in the past few years since he's got drafted, in my opinion. He has shown some improvement, but I think this is as good as his get, right? He came – how long has he been in the league now? 5 years? What is it, 4 years, 5 years? Well, anyway, however long it's been, I think we've seen what we're going to see out of Blake. So, and we've yet to see what we're going to get out of Deshaun. So I think that's the biggest reason why I say, the defense makes them better. Blaine, how do you feel?
I believe Blake Bortles is going into his 5th year now. And that's my problem with this team. Blake Bortles. I don't believe in Blake Bortles. And when your most important position on the field is a inconsistent, Jekyll and Hyde player, then I just can't put my money on the Jaguars. Now my question was, is Bortles the real deal now? He had a good season last season, or a solid season last season, most of the season. And the other question was, will the team rely mainly on the defense to carry them? Can it carry them again? This is not the same league that we had back in 2000, where the Ravens defense carried them all the way through the Super Bowl and just had an adequate offense. This it's harder for defenses to carry teams with the new scheme, with the way that the offenses are scripted out now, mainly throwing quarterbacks, running quarterbacks. I just don't see this. I don't believe in this offense, and I don't believe in the quarterback position here. But I will say that they have a schedule that's favorable to them in the second half. A second half schedule is favorable to them, so they could get 10 wins out of this. Let's see. Interesting on the defensive end, Dante Fowler was he's serving a 1-game suspension to start the season. He violated the league's personal conduct policy. It was an incident that stemmed from he encountered a man in St. Petersburg parking lot where he was accused of stomping the man's glasses and throwing his groceries into the lake. I don't know. It's just something that I'd like to see the video of that. But
I can tell you exactly how it happened. The guy sitting
were you there?
Stupid little glasses on, just standing like yelling like, "I'm sorry, sir." He's like, "You know what? Here, let me take these for you. Shoo! I'm not gonna hit you, but here's your glasses and here's your groceries. You want your groceries? In the lake. Now move your damn van."
I think Chris is saying that because he's either done that or felt that way.
Oh yeah. Those of you who know me out there, that is such a Chris move to do. Just take all of his orange juice and just dump it in the lake. That is such a Chris thing to do. Yeah, it never works out well, but it feels good for a couple of minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead, Blaine.
No. I was going to say, I wonder if he thought that just stopping the glasses and throwing the groceries in the lake and not hitting the guy he would be able to avoid a penalty from the NFL.
Well,
I never touched a guy.
As a father, a friend, a brother,
that's pretty good.
An owner, I'm cool with it. Like if you got those kind of anger issues and all you did was something that we're all gonna laugh about in a little bit, it did hurt your team, but you didn't do anything like ship a car from your hometown to your new house with gun parts, bullets, and weed in it, like the dude in Cleveland just did. So you know what? If the guy just flips out, throws some groceries into a lake, I'm okay with that. I think it's ridiculous for a one game suspension. But if you felt like you had to get it out and that's how you did it, I can handle that. And I guarantee you, the next time he's just gonna look at the guy and be like, you know what, your groceries are lucky that you're the second one I met that pissed me off in the parking lot, not the first. I think that's what it comes down to. But yeah, I feel what you're saying. But it is funny because no one got hurt. He didn't kill anybody. He didn't do anything. He didn't change anyone's lives. But it does hurt your team, and that's something that these guys gotta be aware of. And that's going to be a theme that we're going to have to talk about over and over again all season long.
Well, I just want to end by saying that I did pick the Jaguars as the second team in the division, finishing second in the division.
So I now vote that we put in some big prizes into our pick'em pools, because if you guys think that the Texans are going to beat the Jags this year, I'm going to crush in the pick'ems this year. But that's what I say, and then a couple of games in, everything goes down and it crashes. But I do want to give you guys both credit, because what you say is right, and I don't have a lot of faith in Blake Bortles, and I can't think of many other teams in the NFL except for going back way back when, like Baltimore, Blaine just said, where the defense and the run game can pull you through. But I think this one is the case, and I think if they were in so let me pass this question around before we get to Tennessee. We'll go to Coach and then to Blaine. If this team was in the NFC, I think they would get smashed. And I think the fact that they're in the AFC is why they're going to do better. Do you guys agree with what I said, or do you feel differently? So we'll go to you first, Coach.
Oh no, absolutely. That was one of the things that I appreciate about the argument that Blaine makes. Schedule has a lot to do with how many wins you can project, and so for that reason, you have to give them, a nod. And same thing with Jacksonville. They have an opportunity to, both be 10-win teams, in my opinion. And so,
Yeah. Okay. I could see that. Go ahead, Blaine.
Yeah, you look at the second half of that schedule. The only formidable foe that they have, foes that they have, is Week 11 against Pittsburgh, and you have to go all the way to Week 17.
where Philadelphia? Is it Philadelphia?
No, Philadelphia isn't. They play Philadelphia Week 8.
Week 8, okay.
For their bye, they get a bye Week 9. That second half of the schedule, they start off Week 10 with Indy. Then they meet they host Pittsburgh. They go to Buffalo. They host Indy. At Tennessee, host Washington, at Miami. Then end up at Houston. So that second half of that second half is very easy for them.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is completely true. I mean, I'm looking at the Coach Christopher is a Rams fan. I'm looking at the Seahawks and the Rams and stuff, and the NFC West has to play the NFC North and the AFC West. That means all these teams got to play the Chargers, the Raiders, the Packers, the Vikings. Besides playing each other, as opposed to what some of these other teams get, that is such a different feel. I mean, the Seahawks have 5 of their first 6 games on the road, and then they finish with the Chargers, the Rams, you go on the Vikings, and it just goes on down the list. I mean, so schedule, absolutely, because when you're trying to figure out like how is this going to work out, I totally agree with it. I think that maybe I'm way higher on the Jags than you guys are, and I think that they're going to do a fantastic job. So we'll see, but that's what makes the NFL so interesting is you never know. And if I did know, then I would have a couple more pennies in my pocket than I do now. So talking about someone that has surprised and disappointed, that's the Tennessee Titans. I'm not sure what to do. I really like some of the moves they made. I think Dion Lewis being back there with Henry gives them a lot of versatility. I think Dion Lewis, along with Mariota, kind of gives them more of that Oregon feel. That wiggle, that speed burst, quick pass kind of option that they were missing before. And I like the fact that they got Malcolm Butler. They've shoring up that secondary. I think the team is good, but once again, I think this is just kind of like one of those middle of the road teams where, and this is something that I'm having to eat as a Seahawk homer this year, is I want to come fired out, but as training camp starts and you start seeing all these injuries happen, and you realize, well, one injury to any of these positions and the team is in trouble, and that's not a team that's going to win in the NFL because the NFL is about depth. I don't think Tennessee has the depth. I think that their starting day one group is a formidable group, but I don't see a ton of wiggle room if they have 1 or 2 injuries, and I think that's it. I think that's a difference between you look at like a coach's team like the Rams and a team like the Packers and some of the other teams in the NFC. You just see so much depth where, yeah, it'll hurt, but we can figure out something else. Whereas these teams, I think Tennessee, you lose a receiver or two, that's it. You lose Delaney Walker at the tight end position. That's pretty much it. You lose one of the running backs, and they become kind of a one-dimensional team. I just don't see them lasting 16 games and really making a dent in the playoffs. I could see them being, because for me, a 6-win team and a 9-win team is just a couple of lucky breaks. I think that's in my, the 7. I should say like 7 to 9, 6 to 9, even maybe up into the 10. When you get in the double-digit win teams, those are teams that overcame when everything says they shouldn't have won, but somehow they found a way to win. That's when you get into those winning teams, and losing teams are just teams you're going to find a way to lose because they don't have the personnel or the coaching. Though I think what you see from almost all, in my opinion, the 3 teams or the 2 of the teams being the Texans and the Titans are in that middle range. I think the Colts are going to fall off again, and it's going to kind of be an abandoned ship rebuild kind of situation, and the Jags are going to run away with it. That's where I see it. So why don't we go the other way? Blaine, why don't you go first, and we'll go to Coach.
Okay, this is another team that has a new coaching staff. So that's the big question for me: is how effective with this coaching staff? What's how what kind of a start they're going to get off to?
Uh-huh.
Let's see. They've extended tight end Delaney Walker for 2 years, which is good. He's 33 years old, but still one of the top producers as tight end in the league, and a favorite target of Mariota. So that's going to be a plus for them. They extended left tackle Taylor Lewin on a 5-year deal.
Yeah.
Makes him the highest paid offensive lineman in the league. At age 27, he's developed to one of the top performers at tackle position. On the other side, they lost safety Jonathan Cyprian. He's out for the season with an ACL for ACL surgery. He missed the first 6 games of last season due to a hamstring injury. They do have Kendrick Lewis and Brendan Trawick. They're next in line, and Lewis getting the first crack, expect to get the first crack at replacement. But they also signed free agent safety Kenny Vaccaro. And also wide receiver Rashard Matthews has been placed on the active PUP list with undisclosed injury. But he has been running, before practices, running routes on the field, and they said he looks good, and they hope he'll be back soon. Right tackle John Conklin is also on the PUP with an ACL tear. Injury occurred in the playoffs last season against the Patriots. He's not a lock to be ready for week 1. Could end up starting the season on the PUP list, reserve PUP list, which means he misses the first 6 games. I don't know about this team. I don't feel good about them. Like I said, new coach with Vrabel. They have a new defensive coordinator with Dean Pease coming in out of his brief 3-month retirement, and it's just that's one I'll be watching. Mariota's been inconsistent as a quarterback. And I'm looking at them to be in a battle for last place with Indy. Coach?
I'm agreeing with you on a lot of the issues of uncertainty, new staff. Depth is definitely a concern because even with that defensive front, after that first group of defensive linemen, KC and excuse me, sorry about that. With KC, God dog, who's the other guy I'm trying to think of? Daquan Jones, and then there's a couple of tackles, Austin, and one more guy. Then there's nobody. It's like there's a fall off, and you're kind of linebacker heavy, but not a lot of great linebacker play. You know what I mean? There's still some maturing going on with their linebackers. Is what I'm trying to get at. So, but they did get Bates from the Raiders, and so they should be. It should help him a little bit because he's pretty experienced, and also Will Compton from the Redskins is there. But again, new system, new players, new locker room, that kind of thing, and let's be honest, and I agree with Blaine on this aspect in the same respect when it comes to Mariota. I'm not sure he is the guy that you can trust leading you in the playoffs to beat Pittsburgh or the Patriots. I can't see him being that guy to beat those guys. Like I said, we've yet to see. There's a lot of questions right there with that Tennessee team, but I still think they're a little bit better than the Colts.
So let me ask you. So just as we can kind of like talk through this together, right? As we kind of figure this out. So you guys have pointed out like the problems in new system, blocking, problems on the offensive line, problems linebacker core. I just thought so. Work through this and either convince me or maybe I'll convince you. Fournette and that fast linebacking squad where the receivers are going against probably the best cornerback duo in the league. They can't get off the line. And then you look at this Tennessee team, like, how are they going to block, besides Tyler Llewellyn, how are they going to block, Jacksonville and all these guys? And you look at Jacksonville, who destroyed Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh with a fully healthy team, and then beat them again, and then went through the playoffs even better. And you look at Texans, who can't stop anybody from coming in. Their offensive line was already one of the worst in the NFL, and it's getting dinged up by the day, and they can't run the ball. How can those teams compete against the Jags when the Jags have already shown they can beat the best in the AFC? So maybe I'm just a little bit too much on last year or something, but am I convincing you guys, or can you guys show me something that tells me I'm wrong? Because I'm listening to what you're saying. You guys are very knowledgeable, and everything you're saying to me, if you put it into like a mock game, looks like Jags are going to destroy these guys. So tell me why I'm right and wrong, and then we'll close it up. We'll go to you first, Coach.
Well, again, all of these things are tentative on anything can happen. But these are just our projections based on paper, how things look. And on paper, you would think that Houston has the better defensive team, the more athletic guy at the quarterback spot, but it doesn't mean that those things are going to necessarily translate into wins or losses, or more wins or less losses than the other. I'm not saying that Jacksonville is a bum. I'm just saying that for me, I've already seen the upside of Blake Bortles, and we got a taste of the upside of Deshaun Watson, just a taste. So, he being young and coming off of an injury, the Superman mindset is still in him as a young guy. He'll come back and he'll be, he'll test it out. And once he sees that he can plant, he can change direction, then you'll see more and more confidence coming from him as the seasons move forward. I hear what you're saying, Chris. And again, this is just my opinion based on my experience with the Jacksonville Jaguars. A lot of years they look really good, and then they kind of fall short somewhere, especially in the middle of the season. But last year was a good year for them. I'm not going to take that away from them. It was one of the better years that they had. And again, that game in Pittsburgh kind of was the telltale. Like, oh, okay, maybe they're ready to do something. But, I still don't think Blake Bortles is anybody, as long as the Patriots are still together, as far as the coach, the quarterback, and the owner work out their stuff. I still see them as a team to beat. Tom Brady is a guy. I don't know. How do you feel, Blaine?
Well, who did they lose to? Who knocked them out of the playoffs?
Super Bowl team, sir, Patriots, in the championship game at the very last second.
Yeah, but I can't really give you a stat or any statistical reason why I don't believe in this team, other than the fact that they are a Jekyll and Hyde team. They have a history of being a Jekyll and Hyde team. I guess what I'm really looking for is to see them this year do it for 2 seasons in a row, and then I can be a believer. But as long as Blake Bortles is in the most important position on the field, it's hard for me to put my money behind this team. And it's not only going up against the rest of the division, but it's going up against the rest of their schedule. And I just think that the Texans, I believe in Deshaun Watson more than I believe in Blake Bortles, because I've seen enough of Blake Bortles. I've seen his. It's what people say about Joe Flacco during the regular season. It's a Jekyll and Hyde. It's like you have him during the regular season, and then all of a sudden he hits another gear when he gets into the postseason. Different from Matt Ryan, who was good through the regular season and then fizzles out in the postseason most times, except for that 1 year. Blake Bortles is like, with me, he reminds me of what's his name in Miami, Tannehill. I just don't get the consistent play from him. I can't believe in him. Even through last season, he was doing that Jekyll and Hyde thing. He came on in the playoffs. He played well in the playoffs, but there were other games that you're looking at him and you're going like, oh, he's the weak spot. He's the Achilles heel of this team.
And a couple of
And
those
so
W's were saved because of the defense.
exactly, the
Big
defense
time.
carried him.
Carried him.
And so I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the big picture, and I'm going like, do I believe that the Jaguars are going to have a carbon copy of last year and come back and roar down their schedule like they did last year? And I just don't think. I just don't feel it. I don't believe it. So no, Chris, you got a lot of good reasons that make sense, but I just don't believe in this team and this quarterback. And until I see them do it next, what was that?
I said I think we both are on the consensus with that. It's not the defense, I think we're building our decision on quarterback play, the inconsistency versus, the upside. We from what we've seen of Deshaun Watson, we already know there's a lot of room for him to grow. Yeah. We saw some spurts of it, and I don't know. You tell me, Chris, if you're drafting a team right now from scratch, and you have a choice between Blake Bortles and Deshaun Watson as your quarterback, who are you taking?
Okay, that's a totally different situation because what I
no, it's not a different.
No.
Hold on, Chris.
That's simple.
Let me tell you why it's the same thing. Because you're asking us how do we base our decision, and we're saying we're making our decision based on quarterback play.
That's what I was going to get to because after kind of listening to you guys, quarterback play. So let me throw this into the mix. How about this? Number 31st and number 30th defenses in the NFL last year were the Colts and the Texans. The Texans gave up almost 30 points a game. The Jacksonville Jaguars on the top end, after playing the best offenses in the league, they have one of the most difficult schedules against offensive play, gave up less than 17 points per game. So if you're going to give up 2 extra touchdowns per game, and the Texans defense got worse. The Texans have one of the worst defenses in the league. People always think about all these stars on there, but they give up points and yards up to the yin-yang. People can control the ball. They can control their clock. Indy was the 32nd worst. Indy gave up 32 points a game for a 9-game stretch last year towards the end of the year. So I definitely agree that Bortles is better, or was worse than pretty much the other quarterbacks there. However, if you're going to give up all those points and your defense shuts down everybody, with those 2 options, what would you pick? Or just really quickly, yes or no, have I changed your mind or not? Coach Blaine?
Say that again?
So if you're going to give up an extra 18, would you rather have a defense that gives up 18 more points a game and have Blake Bortles, or have Andrew Luck or Deshaun Watson and know that you're going to give up 30 points every game?
So So we're talking also about didn't the Texans have more key injuries though? I mean, we know JJ Watt. We know JJ Watt in this thing.
It's JJ. I mean, but they have no one. They have no corners. They have no safeties. JJ's always hurt. The linebacker core is kind of beat up. They give up the most the most rushing yards. They give the most passing yards to running backs. They give the most explosive plays over 20 yards. The only team that's worse than them is Indy. So I'm asking. I'm not saying this is how it's going to happen. So just a fun question, Blaine and then Coach. If you knew would you rather have Bortles and know you're going to give up on average less than 17 points a game, or would you rather have Deshaun or Luck and know that you're going to have to fight and shoot out, giving up 30 a game?
You're gonna make me take Blake Bortles?
See,
can I take a player to be named?
Because the wins state the same thing. Because even if you have Bortles, if your team keeps your other team in the game the entire game until to a 1-score deal, then you're gonna have a better chance of winning than when you're having to come back. Like, remember that Kansas City, Texas game or the Seattle, Texas game when you're throwing touchdown back and forth for 45 and losing 38-42.
I'll concede your point, Chris. I'll concede your point, but rather than Bortles, I'd rather have a player to be named.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Which is why, which is a great point. Which is why a lot of people are wondering why Jacksonville hasn't drafted a quarterback the last couple of years. So I agree with you guys there.
Well,
So, folks,
not only that, but they extended Bortles,
Yeah.
which
you know,
I'm like,
Well, can I?
well,
Can I?
I do. Go. Why don't you? While you answer that question, Coach, since I did cut you off before you got a chance to answer, I actually have a cool little stat thing on Bortles for you, real quick. So
Well,
go ahead and answer.
well, I'm going to say I don't think Bortles is a bum, and I said that earlier, and I'm going to say it again. I don't think he's a bum. I just think that I'm his consistency. Um, when the point you made was the reason why Jacksonville has to have an awesome defense. It's because Blake shows you flashes of things with great potential, and then he shows you flashes of things that tells you he just doesn't have it. But guess what? After 5 years, this is what you get. You get what you have gotten, and they can be comfortable with that. Maybe Jacksonville is comfortable enough with saying, "Hey, our defense is good enough that we trust the guy because he knows the offense. We don't have to bring another guy in here to teach him anything." And I understand all that, believe me. And I'm not saying he's a bum. I'm just saying you. The highs and the lows of Blake Bortles is basically what you're going to get out of Blake Bortles for the rest of his career. Because the last couple of years, he played, fairly decent, and then he has some games to where he's awesome, and then he has some games to where if he didn't have a defense keeping a team to within under 17 points, a lot of those games would have been losses, especially to AFC teams. And like you said, Jacksonville plays in the NFC West. Put it this way. Jacksonville in the NFC East, they would still be a bottom of the barrel team. My opinion, maybe. Just my opinion.
Yeah. Their playoff run would be a lot tougher than the Texans, the Raiders, and stuff. And for all you Raider fans out there that
Right,
listen to
right.
this,
That's my point exactly,
if you look
Chris.
at the last 3 seasons, you know who's right 1 and 2 in every statistic, yards, percentages, and everything else is a guy who I think is way overrated, and they're both at the lower of the bottom half of the league. Is his and David Carr's Derek, excuse me, not well. David's even worse, but Derek Carr's numbers are almost exactly the same. They're off by 12 yards in passing yards. They're almost the exact same quarterback. So all you guys in the AFC West who think that Carr is so great, he's horrible. Just like Amari Cooper, they're below average people, which is why the Raiders are going to finish at the bottom of the AFC West. So this is a great conversation, guys. We're looking forward to talking to you guys soon. We have a bunch of stuff coming up.
Chris,
Yeah, go ahead.
before you sign off, any Hall of Fame notes?
Oh man, I have so many. I went too long, but I will say this: I forgot just how crazy Ray Lewis was. Ray Lewis is out of his mind. Like you forget it until they put a mic in front of his face. That man is not. I mean, he's amazing, babe.
Can I say something
That
quick?
guy's crazy. Like, could you imagine Ray Lewis with all that passion, intensity in a small room, very angry at you? That'll change your day in a big way.
Well, first of all, they'll come in doing that squirrel dance, and it'll just throw everything off. Can I just make one note before we go, though?
Yeah.
And leave it to me to get on something serious and maybe even controversial in the show.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was glad to hear that Brian Dawkins talked about depression and tried to bring that to light, during his speech. Also, Steve Smith Sr. has come out and says that he's been battling with depression all the way back to his Panther days, and he's been treated for depression, and he decided to put it in the spotlight to encourage people who are going through that to get help. And I've lost a couple of people due to suicide, and people who are close to me. And I think it's something that I wish that the NFL would pay more attention to and put more spotlight on, even more so than the stupid national anthem controversy. It's a shame that's in the spotlight about how we honor the flag and the anthem, and just and this other serious situation, mental disorder, depression, whatever you want to categorize it as, is just swept under the rug and not even it's just barely whispered about. Hopefully we can get our priorities straight.
Great point, and it's a huge deal, especially when you have mixed depression and mental illness and the stigma attached to it. Brandon Marshall is one of a guy I couldn't stand coming up. I respect the hell out of that guy of how he overcame his issues and how he brings light to, it's a disease and it's problematic. And look at Junior Seau, a guy who had everything. When you shoot yourself in the heart, it says something about just how helpless you feel. And I think that's a great point, Blaine. And we're gonna do some that show that we promised everyone last year about both the marijuana treatments, with Kyle Turley and the depression, the post career stuff, as well as some the mental illness stigma. So great point, Baltimore, Blaine. Great point.
Thank you.
Want to add anything as we go out, Coach?
No, it was just, great to be on with you guys today. And, of course, it's always great to be on with Blaine. He's always so informed. And that's such a great asset to have. It just makes for a great show. And I appreciate that, Blaine. Thank you, Chris, for having me on, man. And one of the points that you made just in closing, you talked about Derek Carr and the Raiders. And I think you basically have the same thing with Blake Bortles. They're the same guy. I agree.
Except one doesn't have an out-of-date coach and no defense, and the other one has a sharp coach and a great defense. Yeah. And a great running back.
That's true. That's true. That is true too.
So I think this is going to be a fun division to watch.
Yeah. I think it will be too, and I think it's one of those things where every year, like where I was talking to Coach Christopher a couple days ago on his show about the Rams. Don't forget, everyone had the Rams last place last year at the in the off season. Everyone had them winning 2, 3. Some people had them going winless. So just goes to show how little we actually know about what's going on, in the NFL and how much can change. So that's what makes this such a great game, and that's what makes it so fun. So, folks, if you're listening to this, it's because you have found us on Spreaker. We will be back on a host of other areas. We're going to put this on Coach's page too, and Coach is going to be a big part of everything we do this year, and hopefully we're going to be a part of what he's doing. So thank you for joining us. We're going to be on Tuesday this week talking about the NFC South, and our good friend John Downing, he might be a little too big for us now because he just got a job as a coach at a university. I know he's listening. So if he's too big for us, he's not going to be able to make it. Well, hopefully he will be. But, he may have a few actual real important football things to take care of. You can find us at NuckPods on Twitter and Facebook, at the Knucklehead Podcast Network on knuckleheadpods@gmail.com and Spreaker.com/NuckPods. That's K. And Coach, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me also on blogtalkradio.com/Taylor Sports, and also I'm also on Spreaker.com/Taylor Sports LA. Both of them are Taylor Sports LA. That's Spreaker.com, Taylor Sports LA. Also on Blog Talk Radio, www.blogtalkradio.com/Taylor Sports LA. Same thing on Twitter, same thing on Facebook. So we're excited. Thanks for having us on. Blaine, man, we got to get with you, man. Got to get you on so we can talk too.
You know it.
All right, brother. Thank you guys so much.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening. Take it easy.
Bye.